Hello and welcome to the Indy Author Podcast. Today, my guest is David Viergutz. Hey, David, how are you doing?
Hey, Matty, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
I am pleased to have you here and to give our listeners and viewers a little bit of background on you. David Viergutz is the founder and CEO of two groundbreaking ventures reshaping modern storytelling: the Nightmare Engine, a multi-seven-figure horror publishing and logistics company, and Epistolary, the world's first publishing house dedicated exclusively to epistolary fiction, serializing storytelling told through letters, documents, and physical media. And I became aware of David when he was on the Creative Pen podcast, talking about sort of the business background, how he got into the business he is into. So I'm going to include a link to that episode of Joanna Penn's The Creative Pen podcast in the show notes to this because it's a great conversation. But there was one part of that that especially intrigued me, and it was the idea of bringing fictional stories into the real world. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today, because I think when we think about storytelling, we think about either long form fiction or short form fiction in a book or ebook or audio, maybe in a magazine. But I love talking with people who are taking storytelling beyond those formats. So, David, why don't we just start out? Just give us a little bit of background that will give us some context for a conversation about the craft of what you do.
Yeah, so there's a lot of noise in the indie publishing world right now. There's a lot of noise in general with AI. And in that, as I've always looked for solutions to kind of stand out. I recognize that even when I came into this 6 years ago, before AI was really a big thing, that I was going to have to stand out from everybody else because everybody else was doing the same things and we're all competing for the same attention. And I saw that as a solution, as an issue to solve. And so right away, I knew that to be different was to be okay. And I valued myself as a writer, not necessarily as a novelist. And I've always I do write a lot of novels because I enjoy the medium, but telling stories through writing is how I've always viewed myself, that as what I do. And so scare mail was inevitable when you have that kind of mindset. And with that, and I'm kind of rambling a little bit right here, but my first book had journal entries. It had imagery. It had an evidence log. It had a map. It had a QR code to a link to a book funnel download for an audio file long before any of this came about. And that book sat for 20 something more books, not even realizing that I was stumbling towards what would later become scare mail. And with that came, I had to accept that I was okay with abandoning my vanity as a novelist, looking at other ways to stand out from the noise. So I was looking for opportunities where everybody else was trying to do the same thing and make the same thing fit.
Can you just describe a little bit if a person engages with scare mail, what are they engaging with?
Yeah. So scare mail, I think, and epistolary writing in general, I think there's a genre that's developing. This reminds me of the early days of lit RPG, where there's an expectation being set by the writers and by the people who are delivering it. And largely these expectations are meant to give the reader an experience they could not get anywhere else. And so these expectations are basically what I call them tropes. I mean, the tropes of epistolary writing. And these are exclusive to my stories, and they're exclusive to every story for every author that we sign. They must have these 3 rules. And the first rule is, why can this not be a novel? Why does it have to be story letters? Why does it have to be in this form? Why does it have to have a fake energy bill or a recipe to this particular old fashioned, like it's in scare mail? Why is there a crossword puzzle and how does it relate to the story? Why can it not just be a novel? That's the first part. The second part is, what's the ticking time bomb? Why 12 letters? Why 24 letters? Why 6? Where's the urgency? Where's the not urgency? Why is it taking an entire year to tell this story? And then the third one is the most important one. Why is the reader getting the letters? Because if you can't explain that to the reader, if you can't explain to them why the medium in which you are writing, that they're getting it that way versus a novel, then I think you're missing something, because each one of my stories explains to the reader in the very first letter why they're getting it. And it has to be clever. It can't be, Scare Mail 2 takes place largely in space. And the reader is getting the letters because it's an ongoing investigation into this abandoned spacecraft. And the letters are being ejected via a pod that's collected by a ship that is following. And the people are getting it because the lady who is writing these letters she believes that something is going to happen to her on the ship, and she doesn't want anybody to forget what happened to her. So she basically sacrifices herself knowing full well what's going to happen. And she is giving that information, that knowledge out to the world. And so that's the cleverness to it. Why is the reader involved? Because I know there are companies out there that are doing well in story letters, and they just say, you get to be a fly on the wall for this story. And it's like, what fun is that? I mean, it's like buying a novel. It's just chopped up into a bunch of pieces. Why am I involved? And it's more than just, oh, you can get cool mail, right? So you have to go further. And I think Scare Mail is setting that precedent. I think Epistolary is setting that precedent where we're saying, no, these are the genre rules and we're going to stick to them. And maybe they adapt over time. But, right now I can tell you I've got 3 stories out that follow those rules. I've got 7 stories launching next year that follow those rules. So these rules were largely set by what my readers said they enjoyed most. And so I think that's what's important.
Yeah, I love that idea of involvement. And the reason I was so intrigued when I heard you on the Creative Pen podcast is that I have always loved these stories that literally involve the consumer. And I remember years and years ago, I wish I could remember what the name of this company was, but I signed up for one of these experiential kind of storytelling experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being somewhere and getting a phone call. So I answered the phone, I answered the call, and I kind of thought that maybe it was going to be like a recorded message from the company or the service. And so I didn't say anything. I was just waiting for the recording to play or whatever it was. And then finally I said hello. And when I said hello, it said, "Oh, I'm so glad I found you. It's important that you check your email right away," or whatever the message was. And it was so much fun. And this was, I don't even know, might have been 20 years ago. Like it was very early in this. And then later I found another company that I won't name that had the similar kind of experiential thing, but it was much more around like the physical objects. They had very sophisticated, very realistic looking objects. And it was fantastic. And I almost feel like they shot themselves in the foot because the experience of getting the lead up was so great. And you were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I wonder how this is going to end. And then I was always disappointed in the story. And I felt like that was a company that was very good at the logistics, I'll say, but really not so good at the storytelling. And I'm really intrigued by this idea of why is the reader engaged as you're describing. Talk a little bit about how you thought through that and how you landed on the experience you wanted the readers of Scare Mail to have.
Yeah. So I drew a lot of my inspiration from Taylor Swift. And people are like, wait, what, how? And here's why, is because I saw the parallels between what the movie industry was doing and what the writing industry was doing. And so the music industry was largely, they've got their streaming services. You can pay, $10 a month or whatever, and you get unlimited music from all your favorite artists. Sound a little familiar? Sounds like Kindle Unlimited to us. Or you can go and buy their music. You can go buy it from iTunes or wherever for $2.99 or $3.99. I mean, we can do the same thing. We can go buy ebooks. Or you can go and you can watch a music video, right? And so we haven't really done much with video, but a lot of people are jumping into creating worlds via YouTube for their stories. They're making movies, they're making trailers, they're making episodes for their books. So we're not too far off. You can go to the artist's website and you can buy their merchandise. And on top of that, you can engage with them depending on what level of engagement they're allowing. And then finally, you can go see a Taylor Swift concert. It's going to cost you. It's going to cost you about $600. And that's for nosebleed. That's not even for the good seats. And so I said, well, me being a sales guy, I know that the sales process for a $2.99 product and a $5.99 product is the exact same in the customer's head. If I know anything about sales, it's sell the most expensive thing you can. And so I said, well, I've got all these other things that Taylor Swift has, but where's my $600 product. And I realized it wasn't the experience that she was selling, because no one will remember the exact details of how the words came out of her mouth from the stage. They'll record it, fine, whatever. That doesn't count. Nobody, you can watch a recording all day long of people who were there and be like, oh, yeah, that's cool. But I'm talking about, like, you won't remember the words. You won't remember the person in front of you. You won't remember the weather. You won't remember anything about it, but you will remember how she made you feel. And so I realized that she was charging $600 plus because of a feeling that she promised through the experience. And so Scare Mail was born out of that. How do I create a feeling in my readers? We do it vicariously through books, right? I mean, we make them feel for our characters and that sort of thing, but it's all surrogate. There's no direct connection to the, like, promising, like, I promise you this feeling. And what I've come to also, like, really dig into is that people will pay anything to feel something. And from that, I'm standing out, and I had imagined how this event, my Taylor Swift concert, would play out, how I would build it, right? And so the first idea I had was, let me dig into the feeling of nostalgia. And I saw this cul-de-sac in my neighborhood, and I thought about shutting it down, right? Because my neighborhood shuts it down for, like, Halloween sometimes, and they've shut it down in the past for, like, Christmas parties and stuff like that. They just shut the cul-de-sac down. I didn't know you could do that in a public road, but apparently you can. And I imagine big pop-up tents, right? We're going to do a Scholastic book fair. Big pop-up tents. Everybody can come. They can scribble on the little magazine and pick the ones that they want, and they walk over there, and that's how they pick up the book, is just like you would in Scholastics. And I'm imagining how this would go down. I'm thinking, like, I could get this much for a ticket, and then I could do this much royalty on the book, and blah, blah, blah. I got to get authors in. And then I'm like, okay, that's enough thinking for the day. And my eyes kind of drifted back towards the house. I saw a mailbox. And I said, there is nothing good in that mailbox. Nothing. And I knew people had sold stories via letters before. I'm not unfamiliar with it. But largely, I don't think that these other people had a mindset of, let me use this intimate form of connection with the reader, with the recipient, to better deepen the feeling that they're getting when they get the letters. And so Scare Mail was born out of that. It wasn't necessarily born because this was a new concept. What I think is a concept done better and done with so much intention to provide something of value that solves an issue for the recipient that it's almost bordering nonfiction. With nonfiction, they can tap into, like, oh, here are your 7 major pain points. Here's the one book that's going to fix them all, right? And Scare Mail, because of the way we've written it, because of the way these rules that we set up earlier, we can attack real problems for the person through story. And novels do this too. I mean, novels do it. It's all vicarious, right? Through this character, you're going to discover this world, and they're going to solve this problem, and you're going to relate to them because they're just like you, and you want to live in an epic fantasy world, and they're going to get magic, and you're going to feel great because they feel great, right? So it's all surrogate. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Scare Mail has done it in a way that says, no, you're part of the story. We're going to explain why you're part of the story. Maybe we'll engage you to be part of the story too, right? Maybe we'll pull a Taylor Swift or whatever and pull somebody, a fan from the crowd, and put them up on stage. Can we do something like that? And the main part I hope is taken away from this is that, yes, I talk about sales. Yes, I talk about numbers. Yes, I talk about selling people feelings. I talk about all that. But in the end, only a good story matters most, because you could forget everything else. I'm a storyteller at heart. I want to tell a good story. Everything else can go. Our first ethos for Epistolary is story or die. That's the number one. And so if you don't have story, I can make your letters as beautiful as possible. I could get an address list and I could send them out, but if your story doesn't hold, there's no velocity.
Yeah.
You'll get the one time and then that's it.
Well, I'm curious about how you're crafting the stories to elicit the feelings that you're hoping for from the recipients. So, one approach could be that it's kind of like serialized fiction. And I know everyone who writes serialized fiction is going to cringe at this, but there's this kind of feeling like each episode of the serial has to end on a cliffhanger to draw people into the next one and so on. Did you feel like, or do you feel as if the rules of serialized fiction, whatever they are, apply pretty much as is to what you're doing with scare mail? Or is the medium that you're using, does it suggest something different than like a serialization online or a serialization in a magazine?
Yeah. So I did the serialized game a little bit. I've done my research on it. I've written some, and largely I think it has to rely on those cliffhangers versus with scare mail, there's already an expectation set in the marketing. It's already a set. It said this is slow. You're not going to get this. Like you may get it irregularly, right? You with serialized fiction, you sign up, the author makes a promise, and as long as they keep making that, giving you their end of the promise, they keep delivering. With us, there's a little bit of there's an expectation that things may come oddly. It may not come every 2 weeks. It may take 2 weeks and one day. It might come in 6 days. I've had my mail make it 3 days after shipping, and they're still waiting on the first letter, which is shipped via Ground Advantage. And for whatever reason, that mail just happened to make it in 3 days. It really just depends. There is some in serialized, mainly in the short form writing that yeah, I do take from serialization, but it's not designed to be serial. It's designed to be linear. And so when I set the expectation, is like it's very same as when you set expectations with a novel, right? So when you go to the store and you go to Barnes and Noble and you pick up a book and you see how thick it is, you know that story should resolve within that amount of pages. If you go and get a shorter book, like it's in the medium, you're like, okay, the story should resolve within those set of pages. In this case, people know that they're buying either a 24 letter or 12 letter or 6 letter story, and that the story will resolve itself by the end of it. And so I think there's a natural lead in to accept whatever comes in that letter because they know, okay, it's done with purpose. It's done with the expectation that it's not just serialized and it's going to go on forever and I just got to keep hooking and hooking and hooking. I know that there is going to probably be some low points in the story, just like that, the dreaded middle where, I got to go on a quick travel log. It exists in this too. I mean, it really does. I mean, letters, I think, was it 13 to 15 or 13 to 17 in Scare Mail 1 are the middle. And it feels like the middle with problems that come with writing the middle. So I think there's some. I don't think if you just took serialized fiction, put it on a piece of paper and sent it in the mail, it would do the same thing. I think it has to be this kind of combined package.
I just have to ask, did you have to do anything to accommodate the fact that the readers might not be getting your materials in exactly the order you expected? Like, did you know that could be an issue and take steps in the construction of the story to accommodate that?
So largely, yes, because there is a slight recap, right? Each piece of mail will largely recap on what's been discussed previously, and not like a full like summary, but points, like individual points a character will point out, will acknowledge and talk about, right? So if the character has a suggestion in letter 7, the character in letter 8 may likely take that suggestion and talk about it. And so there is some to that. So, but I will tell you that we make a massive effort into resending any missing letters. And so I'm quite proud of this statistic. I didn't know it the other day until I really looked it over. My assistant sent it over to me. We've sent over 1 million letters to date. And out of those 1 million letters, I have gotten requests to resend 3,000. So that's a lot of mail that's making it into people's mailboxes.
Yeah.
And I can tell you about 1,000 of those are probably my goof on something. So the people who are getting it, I largely think that they are enjoying it and they're looking forward to the next one. And so even if one goes missing, they'll hold off on that one that just came in, send me a message and ask to get the missing piece. I know some people have jumped ahead. They're like, I just want to read it. So like, I'll go ask for the missing piece later. Like, hey man, I just got letter 24, but I'm missing 17. I'm like, what are you doing, man? That was 6 months ago. And so they'll send me a message. But Yeah, I mean, we have systems in place that help us see where somebody is in the story. We have a very relaxed policy. In the end, I've got $100 product. If I can get one person to recommend the product because we resent the letter because it went missing, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it went missing." And if I can get, I mean, you figure like every one out of 100, if I can get somebody to recommend it because they're like, "Yeah, this is an awesome service," and they resent one of my letters when my dog ate it, they didn't even charge me for it, then
Yep.
it's a welcome referral. So I look at it, I was like, okay, like I'll just budget $5,000-$10,000 a year to just resends, like
Yeah.
understanding that I'm probably going to have that many. And
Well,
so,
that's an interesting perspective because I remember when I was engaged in this previous thing that was kind of scare mail-esque, and I had a question at some point, and I was almost hesitant to reach out to the company because I didn't want to break that since they were creating very effectively that this is really a real thing. I'm really getting these emails from people like they're sending me travel brochures with pages highlighted and things like that.
mhm,
And the way I can see that that could be a challenge is that I think for a lot of authors, every author's dream is that people become so involved in their story that they want to become a part of a community and discuss it with other readers. And I can see that that could be a problem for something like scare mail because you don't want to feel like you got this piece of mail along with a million other people. You want to make believe that it's really is personal. And I know that there were, like, online communities of people who were getting this other previous product I had experienced, and I didn't wanna become a part of it because I didn't wanna think about it in that way. How do you factor that in, like, the community building part of it? Do you try to do that? Do you avoid it? How do you handle that?
yeah. So I would say our community is united on the idea that it, a lot of people, and I've seen this come about. They're like, "Oh, the bills suck," right? That's the first like level, right? And it's a very very basic level. And yeah, you could unite under that. Bills suck. Here's my solution. Scare mail, right? So I mean, you could do that. And then I get the one that's like, bills suck and you love good story. Cool. Like also for the mail. Got it. Still kind of weak. And this one, it's get off the screens. There's too much noise. There's too much instant gratification. Let's get back to being human. That is where scare mail lies. And so when we unite people, when we bring people, we have a Facebook group, sure. But when we bring people into that, it's not those other two messages. It's that top level one I just mentioned. It is, let's get back to being human. Here are other people who are like you, who are enjoying the story, who are waiting for the letters, who want to talk about them, who want to see what they've created with them. You know, these beautiful collages and works of art where they take everything that's been created and they make a book out of it. They put it all in a book. It's really cool. There's a lady I know, she buys every letter service there is, and this is all she does. So, yeah, I mean, largely that is the message we stand on. And we started doing something too where we have something we call care mail. So it's scare mail with with a silent S. And what it is a monthly system where you can enter your order number and scare mail will partner you with somebody else who has also asked for, who has also put their order number in and requested a pen pal. And so it will swap names and addresses with somebody that you haven't had before. And we try to do it geographically. So it's as far away from that person as possible. And all it says is send a piece of mail, handwritten, nothing typed. And I've got people who have been pen pals for the last year. I've got people who have 7 pen pals and they spend all day, all week writing letters to their pen pals. I've got people who sent packages from Australia to UK or UK to US. Like, hey, here's a bunch of treats from our country. Like, this is what we do.
That's so cool
And
that because it's clearly very connected, like, it's just an extension of the experience they're having with scare mail.
it is. It's all on that message of like, let's get back to being human,
Yeah.
right? And it costs nothing. And at the same point, it's like, what does this do for me, right? What does this do for? Oh, largely the system is automated, so I don't have to do anything with it. I've got a nice tech stack that handles this. But I think they're going to associate me with that connection, right? They're like, how did you find your pen pal that you've been talking to for the last year that you've built an emotional connection with, that you're sending pictures of your family and your dog and you're just writing back and forth? How did you? Well, I found it through David. He's got this thing. And so I think there's a level, I think it's very passive. I don't think there's a way to monetize it, and I'm okay with that. We're going to do the same thing for our authors with Epistolary. There will be a pen pal where you can be in contact with somebody else who has also asked to meet someone.
When you are thinking through the stories of Scare Mail, and you've mentioned, like, it sounds like you have the 6-month version or the 6 iteration version, the 12, 24, and the hope would be certainly that maybe somebody experiments with a 6 installment Scare Mail package, and then they think, oh, that was great, I'm going to go on to the 12 installment one. So do you connect your stories? Do you have common threads? Do you intentionally make them very different? Like, what lessons can storytellers learn who are maybe writing one series and now they're thinking about writing another series, which I think would be the equivalent of more traditional forms of fiction?
Yeah. So if I gave the impression I have a 6 and a 12 and a 24, I'm sorry. I'm saying there's no limits by having those amounts,
Okay.
but like I do have a 6, and that is for young adults 12 to 16. So Goosebumps style.
Mhm.
6 letters, or is it 8? I gotta take a look. And you know, I would hope that people at like 16 would like love it and then move on to Scare Mail, because I think it's probably appropriate for PG-13. I don't have a lot of blood and gore or anything like that. If I do, it's minimal and necessary. I much prefer, I'm a very slow burn atmospheric writer. Like I really want to, if I can make somebody feel sticky, like they're going to a subway that's all gross and the walls are wet, or for whatever reason their feet are sticking on the floor, that's what I want. So
Uh-huh.
like that's my style of writing. So it lends really well to like a 24 letter installment because I'm a slow burn writer anyways. But yeah, I mean, there is hope for like serializing this. So like if you want it, if I wanted to, I could write a scare me letter series 2. So like now it's 24 months, right? Instead of 12 months. Yeah, I think it's possible. And I've seen other people do it. I don't think there's any rules that say you cannot engage a reader for 3 years straight. Like why, if you are looking forward to the service and the service is good and you're enjoying what you're getting, people pay for Netflix every month for their entire lives. I mean, if you're enjoying it, I don't see why we can't do the same. And the same thing for authors. Like I had a subscription for my super fans. I was only doing like $2,000 or $3,000 a month, but like if you paid $45, you would get any one of my books plus the audiobook plus the ebook for free that month. And I had 20 something books. So I could at least guarantee their subscription if they wanted one of each one of my books for 20 something months. And I was writing 4, 5, 6 books a year. So I could extend that pretty much indefinitely. Like it was going really well. So yeah, I mean, if people love what you have, there's nothing that says you can't just extend it, take the same mediums that we're used to, right? Long tail series, 20 something books. There's nothing that says that this letter series can't be 50, 100, right?
Well, what it makes me think of is for romance authors. So
Mhm.
I can imagine maybe that would be care mail. I don't know what the right word would be for romance, but an author could create a community and there would be a series that would be related to 2 of the characters getting together, writing letters to each other, or writing letters to their best friends, or whatever that might be. And then when you get to the end of that, there could be, oh, you met the primary female character's best friend. So now there's, oh, don't you want to know what letter she's sending? Now there's a whole opportunity to find out more about her and her epistolary companions. And you had mentioned about the on the space station, maybe it becomes like a spin-off character on the space station, and now they're facing a different set of issues depending on how the series ends. Don't give anything away. But I think that people would get engaged in that where they feel like they get to know the people, and that would be great fodder for that kind of offering.
Yeah, I mean, so with story or die also comes character or die, right? I mean, if you could have a great story line and idea, but if your characters are uninteresting or unappealing or just unrelatable, right? So I've written a book where my main character is just absolutely despised, but you understand why he's despised and you're willing to like accept that because he is the main character and you understand it works for him. So you could have a bad character that still holds the story and still carries it. So I mean, if you think about Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Who's the main character of that series? And this is a trivia question. Who's the main character?
Johnny Depp. I haven't seen it, so
Okay, so everybody say Captain Jack Sparrow, and
yeah.
it's like actually no, it's actually Will Turner's story. But so if you watch it from Will, understanding that Will Turner is the main character, and you're like, wait, what? And if you follow the storyline, it's all about him, his family, and everything like that. Captain Jack Sparrow is just much more interesting.
Yeah.
Will Turner's story has been told 100 times, and we're like, how does this, But Captain Jack's is Captain Jack's. It's unique.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you follow the character thread, and you have to, right? Because there is no like big narrator that's jumping into the storyline to explain away what the characters can't, right? It's just conversation. Now you can get clever with it. There's other things you can do in the background and stuff like that. We just signed a really big indie author, and she wrote us a bachelor romance, or bachelor, like a romance like The Bachelor. And so we even have like a third party announcer that comes in to describe like what's going on, like, and what happened in the last episode, the kind of drama that's unfolding and between the two characters. And it's a fae romance, and it's set up like The Bachelor, but the communication for the vying for The Bachelor is all being done via letters. And so you can get clever. You can get clever with the third party, but yeah, I mean, the characters themselves definitely carry this through. I mean, there's no way around it.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that a possible difference between Scare Mail and this earlier experience I had with a different product would be that in that case, you are a character. So the recipient of the communications was supposed to be helping, you know, helping the characters of the story achieve an end. And that would be kind of difficult or creepy to do in a romance, I would think. With the emails that you're sending out, are they directed to the reader, or is it like the reader is intercepting emails or letters between other people?
No, so all my stories are it's an interception. I had to draw the line. I said, okay, I can engage a reader with this, and they can go to this website, they can do this, and they can go to that QR code. At that point, I've created a game, and games have a different set of rules than a story. And so I'm not really interested in creating games. I'm interested in telling stories. And so I go to an extent as to say, okay, like there is some reader involvement, but it builds on the story versus like drawing them further into the story. Now they're a part of it. They are a part of it. They're fly on the wall, but they're an engaged fly on the wall, if that makes sense. They're there, but they're not necessarily there to affect the story. So I take some elements from games, and I see I see the benefit of that. And I know there are readers out there who are expecting that from Scare Mail, right? Largely because of what's happened with like Hunt a Killer, right? And these murder mystery games in a box and that sort of thing. But we really stand on that. No, this is a story, and it's being told this way, and it has to be told this way, versus like sit around with your family and let's figure this out together, right? Horror lends itself to an air of mystery. There is mystery. Even in the fae romance, who is she going to end up with? There's some mystery there, right? So, but it's not necessarily something like you need to hold up the letter to the light to see the answer to the clue. Like, it's not that. There were plenty of services like that. This is storytelling at its core.
Yep. So early on, you had started with the idea of answering the question about why are they getting it? Why are they getting the communication we're sending to them? And I'm wondering, probably to sort of close out our discussion, if you can talk about how you balance the feelings that you want to elicit among the recipients to address the why they're getting it, and the business reasons that you're bringing to why they're getting it. Are there tensions between those two ends, or do they seem to mesh nicely in what Scare Mail is doing?
I think there's a decent blend. I mean, in the end, and it comes down to the advertising too, is like how can we better position the product to solve solutions for the reader, right? And then we have to purposely make the story as the necessary solution to that problem. So there's a blend in it from a nonfiction perspective, is saying like, what can we unite together? Like everybody can understand like the value of a good mattress, right? And so it's a different arms race for people who are selling mattresses at that point. The same thing with this. We understand that the mailbox sucks. We understand that the digital world sucks. We understand that people may be burned out from what they've been reading. People may be burned out from instant gratification. That sucks. We can attack that together. So it just becomes then like, how can we better speak to that person Same thing with the mattress guy. The mattress guy has to go above and beyond and explain why his mattresses are better than everybody else's. What's the story behind that mattress? Why are you selling mattresses? See what I'm saying? It doesn't, there's a lot of parallels between not only like the product itself, but the story behind the product. And then even further, you could even explain like there are going to be people who bought Scare Mail because it's me selling it, right? And we're going to really see with Epistolary, can I still be the face of this company and have a message that I stand behind and say, look, I hate bills and spam in the mail. And I hate the idea that we're going so digital that it's just everything is possible via AI now. The playing field is leveled, right? AI writing is okay. It can be good, but at the end, there's only us. There's only people. And so like, can I give that message? Can I iterate that for the readers? And I wanted to, I don't think anybody's taking me up on this offer, but every time I get an opportunity, I make this offer to somebody. I want somebody who stands behind their story so much that they're willing to make this offer to the readers. Call me crazy. This is the offer. You will love my story. If you found my stuff, you will love my story. If you don't, let me know, and I will buy the story that you want from somebody else. Somebody do it. I want to see somebody do it, and I've yet to see somebody do it, and I think if they do it, they will crush it because it will be an unbelievable offer.
Well, and I like the idea that there are options for appealing to the people you want to reach. One is looking forward, trying to anticipate what people are going to be looking for in a month or a year or 2 years. One is looking right now. What's trending? Is romantasy trending? Now I'm going to quickly write a romantasy book. But I love this third option as well, that you look back to the things that people once had and they're missing. And, you know, that era when you would go to the mailbox and it wasn't like, it wasn't the walk of dread. You opened it up and you would get actual letters from actual people, handwritten with a stamp on it and a return address. And that there are people who remember that era and want to return to it. There are people who are intrigued because maybe they've never experienced that era, but it feels like a personal connection that they've never had and they want to experience. And so tapping into, I think you had used the term nostalgia, tapping into that nostalgia, it's yet another valid and obviously potentially productive way you can reach the people you want to reach with your story.
Yeah, I mean, people will pay anything to feel something. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
We just happen to see the mailbox as this necessary ritual that everybody has, regardless of whether or not you're fully digital with your bills. I guarantee everybody checks their mailbox. And if we can find those solutions everywhere else, right? If we can find those problems that people have and then address it with story, I mean, the world's the oyster. I mean, there is, and I love this too. I'm a novelist, but I've abandoned my vanity of being a novelist. I'm a storyteller. I'm a multi-million-dollar storyteller. That means more to me than trying to be a multi-million-dollar novelist. I'm okay with telling good stories in whatever fashion. I just happen to be going all in on the mail because this medium is so interesting to me. And it's different than if you're writing a short story, right? Even a short story has its own difficulty, right? It's to hook the reader, take them on a journey, engage them in the story so they're interested, have a transformation of character, have solutions to the external and internal problems, and then come to an amazing climax and then moving on to a resolution. I mean, all of that in 5,000 words. Now imagine having to do that in about 1,500 words over the course of 24 letters. I mean, that's the challenge. And it's so fun because it is so challenging. And I think that's where it comes down to, is that I do have fun with this. I do have fun with this, and that's what matters the most. And I think if we lean into being storytellers, we will find other fun mediums than just churning out another romantasy book. Oh, got to hop on the trend, romantasy. Oh, got to hop on the trend and chasing your K-Lytics reports and chasing the KU reads. And I'm running Facebook ads and I'm not making any money. And it's, if you do the same thing over and over again to the same result over and over and over again, I think we both know what that's called. And that's where we, the creators, the novelists, hold so much power. It's because as long as we get out of our own way of being just novelists, and we say, or no, let's be storytellers, no matter what that looks like. Even if that's taking a novel and including a book funnel download link to an audio, that makes it different. Let's do that.
Well, the reason that I like talking to people like you who are taking a different approach to storytelling, I think that there are a lot of people out there who are held back by the idea that we think of story as being a novel or story as being a short fiction in a traditional outlet or something like that. And just trying to spread the word about the fact that there are many ways that stories can be told, and don't hamper yourself by perhaps sticking with one that is just not right for the story that you want to tell.
Yeah.
So, David, it has been so great talking with you. And please let everyone know where they can go to find out more about you and everything you do online.
Yeah, it's real easy. So if you're looking for me, you can find me at davidviergutz.com. If you're looking for the new home for story letters, the #1 story letter publisher on the planet, that's epistolary.com. So also with that website will be the knowledge base. We'll be teaching people, not courses, but articles, because I enjoy business writing, about what story letters are, how to get started, and how to even use some of the facets that we use in your novels to take them to something else, to make them more than just a novel.
Great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Matty.